So that's how those researchers define this issue of wildlife value orientations. That it's basic beliefs that we can measure these basic beliefs, and then if we look at the pattern and intensity, we come up with something that they call wildlife value orientation. So the ability to absorb shock to the system while maintaining certain fundamental characteristics. So, it's a construct because, okay, we're saying that certain things have this ability, this characteristics, other things don't. I don't think the things that we might be examining, might really think about it in that sense if we'd be applying this definition to a forest. The forest probably never really thought of it in this sense. I don't know. I guess I haven't had too many conversations with trees, but I doubt that they're sitting around thinking, well, am I absorbing this shock and maintaining my functions? So it's something in a researcher's mind that we've constructed to sort of explain why we might see one ecosystem doing something and another ecosystem doing something else. So it's a construct that's constructed in our minds, not existing in reality apart from researchers. We might see characteristics of it. We would then define, okay, this is what we might mean by resilience and have these characteristics. But so that'd be the first step of this issue of survey research is defining what it is that we're measuring. So we have this issue of the construct that we're trying to measure. Then we'd use variables that we would include on a survey that would give us a measure of this construct that we're trying to understand and trying to measure. So we're not actually measuring wildlife value orientations or actually measuring resilience, but we're measuring certain sort of characteristics of it that we think are definitive or they're defining this construct that we develop. And so we're making inferences about our sort of conceptions of reality based on some things we can include in a survey to measure this. And with respect to how many variables we might need to make inferences about a construct, it's going to depend on the complexity of our construct. So we might only need one variable to measure this, and this would be referred to as a single item indicator. And so age, we'd probably measure that with one simple question, how old are you? If we were interested in just how often someone harvested a moose or caribou in the past 12 months, one question would suffice for that. Or maybe support of aerial shooting, one question might be sufficient to measure that as well. And so we could ask, is it acceptable or unacceptable to use permanent individuals to shoot wolves from an airplane to reduce the number of predators and have some sort of response scale from highly unacceptable to highly acceptable. That'd be an example of a single item indicator. Other things are going to be more complex, so we would need more than one variable to measure. There's different dimensions of the construct, and we want to capture different aspects of those dimensions. So for example, that wildlife value orientation that I was talking about earlier, one such orientation is this issue of wildlife use. And so it's, remember I said wildlife value orientation is the pattern of direction and intensity of basic beliefs. So these statements on the left, those would be referring to basic beliefs, and these three were hypothesized to measure something about wildlife use, how the sort of relationship between humans and wildlife and if they should be used for the good of humans. And so it's a multi-item indicator. You're trying to measure this construct of wildlife value orientations, and more specifically, something about wildlife use with respect to wildlife value orientation. And they're saying, okay, there's three different, and that's actually just three of them, but there's multiple aspects of this that we want to measure.
I have a question about your Does that interpret, when you interpret afterwards, is that a kind of a blank in the sense of how they responded to that, or is that response, no opinion? I just get confused with the whole neutral territory of either.
It's saying that you're ambivalent towards that question. So you're not, you're not agreeing with it, you're not disagreeing. It's not that you don't have an opinion, but you're not sure if you support or oppose it. Maybe if you're, in the last presidential election, if you're split between the candidates, you're going to vote, but you might need more information on it, or you just haven't made up your mind yet.
So it would be an equivalent to not sure or unknown, or would you add that as a separate?
No, maybe it probably didn't be the best explanation of that. It's placing it within this response scale that's kind of in between agree and disagree, as opposed to something separate from not sure. Would kind of be like, I just don't know about that question at all. I've never even thought about it. So that would be sort of the distinction there.
But it's still an opinion, or understand. An opinion that not the real opinion, because I'm not sure of whatever presented to you. It's an opinion, and it has to be counted as an opinion.
The not.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. Typically, when this type of scale is used, you wouldn't have a not sure in addition to this.
You would or you wouldn't?
Wouldn't.
Sorry.
Yeah, you typically wouldn't have it.
Because if it's different than neither, I mean, if I was taking that, well, in some situations I would agree, but in other situations I would disagree, so I would say neither, but that is different than being just completely uninformed and not sure of what you're, not having an opinion.
But it kind of numerically
So
works, because you're averaging
Right.
out in the middle anyway.
Right.
So if sometimes you're a 3 and sometimes you're a 5,
Right.
putting 4 is more or less okay, right?
Right, but then not having an extra box for people who don't fit on the scale, who should get a 0 because they don't know what they're talking about. That seems like, you'd want some other category for, if that neither is supposed to be at least somewhat informed, then you need an uninformed, I don't know.
Which would be like an A
Rather than I have
rather
a
than
mixed
a number.
opinion. Right.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't include them in, these are something totally different, like, I don't even know, like you said, I don't
Right.
know what you're talking about.
What would that be like if somebody got this in the mail, the option of them not to answer that question?
Yeah, there'd be one
So that
option.
would be like the no data
Right,
response.
yeah. And there's a bit of an issue, it's called attitude formation, and it would be someone seeing this and then, they haven't really thought about it before and they're just sort of coming up with their attitude on the spot. And so that is an issue that researchers would need to deal with, so. I guess, if you were concerned about that, you could include, probably don't know would be the appropriate additional category. So it's not that you're not sure in the same sense as being neither, but you don't know what your opinion is on the issue. And so this is an example of a multi-item indicator where they're saying there's three different aspects of this that we would need to measure to get at this pattern interactions of people's basic beliefs. And so if we were going to look at this issue of resilience, what might be some of the things that we would need to look at in order to start to measure if something